Sometimes what kills you isn't what the doctors are paid to look for. 15 physicians couldn't save the tech mogul. The woman who cleaned their examining rooms spotted what they missed. Marcus Thornton deteriorated in his private medical suite at Cedar Memorial. Machines hummed. Specialists conferred in hushed tones. Death approached despite brilliant medical minds analyzing his mysterious decline. Elena Reyes slipped into the room, invisible as always. Night shift meant fewer eyes to look through her. She inhaled the familiar scent of antiseptic mixed with expensive cologne and something else. Something metallic. Wrong. Her chemistry-trained mind jolted with recognition. She froze at the yellowing fingernails, the particular pattern of hair loss, the subtle discoloration at his gums. Her heart raced as the answer crystallized in her mind, clear as laboratory glass. She knew exactly what poison was killing him, but who would listen to a housekeeper when 15 specialists had failed? Cedar Memorial housed a secret on its 7th floor, the executive medical wing where wealth purchased privacy. Thornton's suite resembled a luxury hotel suite, medical equipment disguised by walnut panels and ambient lighting. The software mogul had paid for exclusivity, demanding the region's top diagnostic minds solve his mysterious decline. Elena methodically wiped surfaces. At 36, her movements were efficient, economical habits formed through necessity. Single mother of 2, night shift worker, invisible. Yet her eyes missed nothing, categorizing symptoms and analyzing patterns that doctors overlooked. 10 feet away, Dr. Harrison Webb addressed his team, silver-haired and distinguished, with a voice that never needed raising to command attention. "Gentlemen, we've exhausted conventional pathways. Mr. Thornton's symptoms defy standard diagnosis. His liver function continues declining. Neurological symptoms worsen daily. We must consider more exotic possibilities." Elena kept her head down but her ears open. She'd perfected this skill in college, absorbing lectures while taking meticulous notes before life intervened. 12 years ago, Elena had been a chemistry department standout, scholarship student on track for pharmaceutical research. Then her mother's terminal illness left 2 younger brothers needing support. She withdrew mid-semester, promising to return. She never did. "The cleaning staff needs to finish quickly," Dr. Webb announced, noticing Elena. His words dismissed her without directly addressing her. "We have important matters to discuss." Elena nodded, face neutral despite the familiar sting. They saw her uniform, not the mind behind it. She'd maintained her passion for chemistry through library books, online lectures, scientific journals read during lunch breaks, knowledge without credentials. As she wiped surfaces, Elena's eyes caught Thornton's chart. Puzzling symptoms, peripheral neuropathy, hair loss, digestive issues. Classic presentations misattributed to separate conditions. Dr. Webb swept past, brushing her aside without acknowledgement. Elena stepped back, becoming part of the wall. "He walks past me every day like I'm furniture," she thought. "That's why he never notices what I see." Her gaze shifted to Thornton's personal items. Expensive grooming products arranged neatly on the counter. The hand balm in particular, imported and exclusive. She noted its position had changed since yesterday. Someone had moved it. Elena filed the observation away. In chemistry, small inconsistencies often revealed the answer. The suite door opened as a well-dressed man entered. Daniel Garrett, according to the visitor badge clipped to his designer suit. Elena recognized him from tech magazines, Thornton's former business rival, now supportive friend during illness. "Mr. Thornton's resting," Dr. Webb informed him. "His condition hasn't improved." "I brought his favorite hand balm," Garrett replied, placing an elegant silver jar on the nightstand, imported from Italy. "Small comfort, but he insists it's the only brand that doesn't irritate his skin." Elena noted how Garrett positioned the jar prominently, ensuring it would be used. Something in his careful placement triggered her analytical mind. Too deliberate, too insistent. Later, as she cleaned an adjacent room, Elena overheard 2 residents discussing Thornton's case. "Strangest symptom progression I've ever seen," the first said. "Like multiple conditions simultaneously." "Dr. Webb thinks it's an autoimmune cascade," replied the second. "But the tests keep coming back inconsistent. Meanwhile, the richest man in Silicon Valley gets weaker while we chase theories." Elena paused, connecting fragments in her mind. The symptoms, the mysterious decline, the expensive hand balm that appeared regularly. A hypothesis formed, but she needed more observation. That night, she adjusted her cleaning schedule to include Thornton's room during his sleeping hours. She studied his chart updates, noting new symptoms that further confirmed her suspicions. The pattern was becoming unmistakable to someone with her specific knowledge. As her shift ended, Alina stared at her reflection in the employee bathroom mirror. The uniform, practical and forgettable. The face tired but still sharp with intelligence. The invisible barrier between her world and theirs. "They don't see me," she whispered to herself, "but I see everything." Alarms erupted at 2:17 in the morning. Alina heard the code blue announcement while cleaning the adjacent room. Doctors rushed past. Marcus Thornton had deteriorated suddenly. She paused her work, heart racing. Through the partially opened door, she watched the emergency unfold. Liver enzymes critical, kidney function dropping, neurological responses diminished. A resident reported, voice tight with tension. Dr. Webb strode in immediately, taking command. "Full toxicology panel again. Something's causing this cascade failure." Alina edged closer, drawn by both concern and scientific curiosity. The medical team worked frantically, monitors beeping faster, nurses rushing with medications. "Could it be environmental?" suggested Dr. Chen, a younger physician. "Something in his food, water, or personal products." Dr. Webb dismissed this with a cutting glance. "We've tested everything in this room twice. Focus on medical possibilities, not amateur detective work." Dr. Chen shrank back. The team continued their urgent intervention, stabilizing Thornton temporarily. As the crisis subsided and doctors dispersed for consultations, Alina slipped into the room. She checked his chart, memorizing new symptoms. Then her eyes returned to the bathroom counter. The hand balm. Something about its metallic sheen triggered a memory from her university days. A specific lecture on heavy metal poisoning. Alina moved closer, examining Thornton's fingernails. The discoloration pattern subtle but distinctive. The particular quality of his hair loss. The reported abdominal pain. She inhaled sharply. The symptoms matched thallium poisoning exactly as described in her toxicology textbook. Could 15 specialists have missed something so classically presented? Alina hesitated, then approached Carmen, a night nurse she'd built a friendly rapport with. "Excuse me," Alina said quietly. "Has anyone checked Mr. Thornton for thallium poisoning? His symptoms match exactly." Carmen's expression shifted from friendly to dismissive. "Alina, I know you mean well, but please, these are the country's top specialists." "But the pattern of symptoms, if you're done eavesdropping," Carmen interrupted, voice cooling. "Leave the medicine to doctors." Alina stepped back, cheeks burning. She returned to her cart, the familiar weight of dismissal settling on her shoulders, but certainty crystallized in her mind. She knew what was killing Marcus Thornton. The question was, would she risk her job to make someone listen? As she wheeled her cart down the corridor, Alina's thoughts raced through possibilities. The symptoms aligned perfectly with her hypothesis. The progressive neurological issues, the digestive problems, the distinctive pattern of hair loss. In her undergraduate toxicology course, thallium poisoning had been presented as the perfect poisoner's tool, difficult to detect unless specifically sought. She completed her shift mechanically, mind focused on Thornton's declining condition. At home, she pulled an old textbook from her small but treasured collection, salvaged from her university days. The chapter on heavy metal poisoning confirmed her suspicions. Thallium, colorless, odorless, absorbed through skin contact, causing systemic damage while mimicking numerous conditions. The next morning, Alina arrived early, determined to find a way to make someone listen. She watched as Daniel Garrett visited again, bringing another jar of the exclusive hand balm. The routine was always the same, insisting it was the only brand Thornton would use, personally applying some to show its quality. Perfect delivery system for a slow, deliberate poisoning. Alina weighed her options. Direct confrontation would be dismissed immediately. Evidence was needed. Irrefutable proof that even Dr. Webb couldn't ignore. She made her decision. Marcus Thornton was running out of time. During her break, Alina used the hospital's public computer to confirm her suspicion. The symptoms aligned perfectly with thallium poisoning. The specific pattern of hair loss, the peripheral neuropathy progressing upward, the distinctive gastrointestinal issues. She scribbled a note on hospital stationery. Check for thallium poisoning. Classic presentation. She left it on Dr. Webb's clipboard while cleaning his office. The next morning, she arrived early, positioning herself near the doctor's conference room. Through the partially open door, she heard Dr. Webb's voice. And apparently, he said with audible derision, "Our cleaning staff has diagnostic opinions." Laughter rippled through the room. Someone left an anonymous note, suggesting thallium poisoning. "We tested for heavy metals in the initial workup." Another doctor responded. "Exactly. Standard procedure." Webb dismissed. "Cleaning staff playing detective. Next they'll be performing surgery." Elena's chest tightened. Her hands gripped her cleaning cart until her knuckles whitened. The dismissal stung, but the patient's life mattered more than her pride. She formulated a new approach. Dr. Chen seemed more approachable. During her afternoon shift, Elena timed her cleaning to intercept him. "Excuse me, Dr. Chen," she began, voice steady despite her racing heart. "About Mr. Thornton. I believe he's suffering from thallium poisoning. The symptoms match perfectly." Dr. Chen's expression shifted from surprise to discomfort. "That's an interesting theory, but we've tested for heavy metals. Standard tests might miss it if it's being administered consistently in small doses." Elena pressed. "His hand balm, I believe that's the delivery mechanism." "I appreciate your concern," he interrupted, checking his watch, "but I need to be somewhere. Perhaps mention it to nursing staff." He walked away quickly. Elena stood alone in the hallway, invisible once more. Later that evening, the head of security approached as she cleaned. "Miss Reyes, we've had reports of you interfering with medical matters. This is a warning. Know your boundaries or there will be consequences." Elena nodded, throat tight. She needed evidence. Irrefutable proof that even Dr. Webb couldn't dismiss. But gathering it meant crossing lines that could cost her job, the income her family depended on. That night, alone in the employee break room, Elena made her decision. Marcus Thornton had perhaps days left. Her job security couldn't outweigh a human life. She would force them to see what they'd missed, or lose everything trying. Daniel Garrett visited again that afternoon, staying only 15 minutes, but ensuring the hand balm was prominently placed. Elena observed from the hallway, noting how he encouraged the day nurse to apply it to Thornton's hands and arms for comfort. After Garrett left, Elena performed routine cleaning in Thornton's bathroom, carefully studying the hand balm's container. The expensive packaging revealed nothing suspicious, but the product itself had a faint metallic sheen when examined closely. She needed a sample, but taking it openly would trigger suspicion. Instead, she waited until the nursing shift changed when Thornton's room was momentarily unattended. With practiced efficiency, Elena transferred a small amount of balm into a sterile specimen container she'd acquired from the supply room. The sample disappeared into her uniform pocket. That evening, Elena picked up her children from her neighbor's apartment. 10-year-old Miguel and 12-year-old Sophia had grown accustomed to her exhaustion, to homework completed without maternal oversight, to meals prepared by young hands when shifts ran long. "Mom, are you okay?" Sophia asked, noting Elena's distraction. "Just a complicated situation at work," Elena replied, forcing a smile. "Nothing for you to worry about." After the children were asleep, Elena spread her materials across the kitchen table. Her old toxicology textbook, printouts from medical journals, notes on Thornton's symptoms. The pattern was undeniable to trained eyes. Why couldn't 15 specialists see it? Because they weren't looking for it. Because thallium poisoning was rare, almost archaic. Because they'd run standard panels that might miss gradual exposure. Because no one expected a billionaire to be slowly poisoned by a trusted friend. And because no one listened to housekeepers. Elena stared at her cleaning uniform hanging on the door, the physical embodiment of her invisibility. Tomorrow, she would risk everything to pierce that invisibility, to force them to see both the poison and the person who'd identified it. Elena arrived early for her shift, carrying a small bag alongside her usual supplies. Inside, baking soda, aluminum foil, and small containers borrowed from the cafeteria. Innocent items that combined with standard cleaning solutions could create a rudimentary but effective test for thallium. Her first task, collect evidence. During morning rounds, Elena timed her cleaning to overhear Thornton's latest symptoms. The progression matched thallium poisoning perfectly. Worsening neuropathy now affecting speech, distinctive hair loss pattern, rapid deterioration despite supportive care. She carefully collected a tiny sample of the hand balm while cleaning Thornton's bathroom. The expensive product had a faint metallic sheen when rubbed between fingers, subtle but detectable to trained senses. In a maintenance closet, Alina worked quickly, mixing solutions with practiced precision. The makeshift chemistry setup looked nothing like sophisticated hospital equipment, yet the principles remained sound. She'd performed similar tests in university labs, earning top marks for accuracy with minimal resources. The test confirmed her suspicion, positive for thallium. She photographed the results with her phone. Next, Alina reviewed Thornton's visitor log, noting a pattern. Daniel Garrett visited regularly, always bringing the same exclusive hand balm as a gift. The timing matched the escalation of symptoms. At 2 o'clock, Alina learned of an emergency conference in Thornton's suite. All specialists would attend, as his condition had become critical. Perfect timing. She changed into her freshly laundered uniform, straightened her badge, and gathered her evidence. Test results, visitor logs, symptom timeline, and research printouts. Alina rehearsed her explanation mentally, drawing on knowledge from toxicology textbooks memorized years ago. The doctors gathered in Thornton's suite, tension evident in their postures. Dr. Webb stood at the center, presenting the latest failed interventions. Alina knocked once and entered without waiting for permission. 15 pairs of eyes turned toward her. Dr. Webb's expression shifted from surprise to irritation. "This is a closed medical conference. Please come back later. Mr. Thornton is dying of thallium poisoning," Alina stated clearly, her voice steadier than her heartbeat. "I can prove it." Dr. Webb's face hardened. "Security," he began. "The symptoms match perfectly," Alina continued, stepping forward and placing her evidence on the table. "Progressive ascending peripheral neuropathy, distinctive alopecia, abdominal pain, cognitive decline. Classical presentation." She pointed to her test results. "I confirmed thallium presence in his hand balm, the imported brand he uses daily. Absorption through skin. Slow poisoning over months." "This is absurd," Dr. Webb snapped. "You're a housekeeper, not a physician. I was a chemistry honors student at Riverside University before personal circumstances intervened," Alina responded, maintaining eye contact. "The poison is being introduced through the hand balm brought by Daniel Garrett during his regular visits. The timeline matches symptom progression perfectly." She laid out her evidence methodically, pointing to the visitor logs, the symptom progression charts. Her explanation was precise, scientific, drawing on toxicology knowledge that had remained sharp despite years away from academia. Standard heavy metal panels might miss it because the poisoning is gradual, maintaining levels just below typical detection thresholds, she explained. But the cumulative effects are textbook. Complete silence fell over the room. Dr. Webb opened his mouth to object, then closed it, examining her evidence more closely. Dr. Chen leaned forward. "This actually makes perfect sense with the symptom progression. The tests we ran might indeed miss gradual exposure." Another specialist nodded slowly. "The hair loss pattern and neuropathy presentation are consistent with thallium toxicity." The silence deepened as 15 specialists confronted what they had missed and who had found it. "How exactly did you test for this?" asked Dr. Martinez, the toxicology specialist. "Sodium rhodizonate reaction," Alina replied without hesitation. "Modified for field testing with limited resources. The color change is unmistakable when thallium ions are present." Dr. Martinez raised an eyebrow, impressed despite himself. "That's an advanced technique rarely used outside specialized labs. It was covered in advanced toxicology methods," Alina responded. "Professor Hamilton's course." Recognition flickered across several faces. Hamilton was a legend in academic chemistry. "You were his student?" Dr. Chen asked. "For 1 semester," Alina answered, the old regret briefly visible, "before I had to withdraw." Dr. Webb examined her improvised test results with grudging attention. His expertise couldn't deny the evidence before him, however unorthodox its source. "The concentration pattern suggests deliberate sustained exposure," Alina continued, pointing to her timeline. "Each application delivers a sublethal dose that accumulates in tissues. The symptoms escalate in perfect correlation with Garrett's visits." The specialists began asking technical questions which Alina answered with precise scientific terminology. With each response, her invisibility diminished. They were seeing her now, not her uniform, but her mind. Dr. Chen pulled up Thornton's latest labs on a tablet. "If we specifically test for thallium rather than running a standard panel, you'll find elevated levels," Alina finished. particularly in hair samples from the past 3 months, which will show the poisoning timeline. The room's energy had transformed. The dismissive barrier had cracked. Knowledge had proven more powerful than hierarchy. Run a focused thallium test immediately, Dr. Chen ordered. 2 specialists rushed to comply, taking samples of the hand balm and preparing blood draws. Dr. Webb remained frozen, staring at Alina's methodical evidence. His expression cycled through disbelief, realization, and reluctant acknowledgement. "If you're correct," he finally said, voice strained, "we've been poisoning him further with our treatments for other conditions. The chelation therapy for suspected mercury would be ineffective for thallium," Alina confirmed. "He needs Prussian blue immediately to bind the poison." The specialists exchanged glances, medical minds recalibrating. A nurse returned breathless minutes later. "Rush toxicology confirms thallium at significant levels," she announced. The room erupted in controlled chaos. Orders flew. Treatment protocols shifted. Security was contacted regarding Daniel Garrett. The security footage, Alina suggested. Check when Garrett delivered the hand balm. He likely applied some himself to establish trust in the product. Dr. Chen nodded. "Already requested." The hospital security officer entered. "We've reviewed footage. Garrett manipulated the balm when alone in the room. We've contacted the FBI. Prussian blue treatment was administered." Additional blood work confirmed Alina's diagnosis completely. The room's energy transformed from desperate resignation to focused hope. 3 hours later, Marcus Thornton's vital signs stabilized for the first time in weeks. Alina stood quietly by the wall, her presence momentarily forgotten in the medical flurry. Dr. Webb approached her, his tall frame seeming less imposing now. "Your intervention was," he paused, visibly struggling, "correct. Completely correct." Alina nodded, maintaining professional composure despite the validation flooding through her. "How did you see what 15 specialists missed?" he asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "I'm invisible," Alina replied simply. "I observe without being observed. I see patterns without preconceptions. And I never forgot my training, even when life took me away from it." Dr. Webb nodded slowly. "I owe you an apology. We all do." Before he could continue, monitors indicated Thornton was regaining consciousness. The room hushed as the mogul's eyes opened for the first time in days. "What happened?" Thornton whispered hoarsely. Dr. Webb stood at his bedside. A critical moment of choice played across his face. Claim credit or acknowledge truth. He straightened his shoulders. "You were being poisoned with thallium. We missed it, all of us." He turned toward Alina. "This is Alina Reyes. She solved what 15 specialists couldn't." Complete silence filled the room. Every eye turned to the housekeeper. Thornton's weak gaze found her. "Thank you for seeing what they missed." The silence broke as Dr. Chen began to applaud. Others joined until the sound filled the room. Acknowledgement impossible to dismiss. Alina stood taller, her expertise finally visible. The invisible barrier between medical staff and support personnel had cracked irreparably. "Sometimes the most valuable knowledge isn't framed on a wall," she said quietly. FBI agents arrived within the hour, transforming the hospital wing into an investigation scene. Alina sat in a small conference room, recounting her observations and conclusions to intent federal agents who treated her words with professional respect. "You identified the poison, the delivery method, and the suspect through observation alone," Agent Morrison clarified, impressed. "I combined observation with chemical testing and my background knowledge," Alina explained. "The pattern was clear once I knew what to look for." "You potentially saved a life and caught a would-be murderer," the agent noted. "Daniel Garrett is in custody. Initial questioning suggests corporate espionage, a gradual poisoning to force Thornton to step down before a major merger." When the interview concluded, Alina stepped into the hallway to find the hospital dynamics subtly transformed. Nurses who had previously looked through her now nodded in acknowledgement. Doctors who had never made eye contact now did. Dr. Chen approached with coffee. "I brought you this. You've been answering questions for hours." "Thank you," Alina accepted, the simple courtesy feeling monumental. Later, Dr. Webb intercepted her as she prepared to resume her duties. His demeanor had changed, the assured confidence replaced by uncomfortable self-awareness. "Miss Reyes," he began stiffly, "I want to apologize for dismissing your concerns." His apology was minimal, awkward, the words of someone unaccustomed to admitting error. Alina nodded. "Thank you, Dr. Webb. Your knowledge saved his life when our expertise failed," he acknowledged, struggling visibly with his pride. We all have different perspectives, Alina replied. Sometimes the answer is visible only from certain angles. He nodded curtly and walked away, status diminished but professional identity intact. Over the following days, the hospital administration struggled to categorize Alina's position. Her job title remained Environmental Services Technician, yet she was repeatedly consulted on Thornton's recovery and the ongoing investigation. At home, Alina carefully explained the situation to her children. So you solved a mystery the doctors couldn't? Miguel asked wide-eyed. I noticed something they overlooked, Alina corrected gently. Sometimes being in a different position lets you see things others miss. Sophia, more perceptive at 12, recognized the deeper implications. Will things change now? Will they respect you more? Alina considered the question carefully. Respect isn't something given permanently. It's earned and maintained. But yes, something has shifted. A week after her diagnosis, Alina was called to the administrative offices. The hospital's chief of medicine, Dr. Patricia Lawrence, greeted her with newfound collegiality. Miss Reyes, your actions have placed this institution in an unusual position. Dr. Lawrence began. You demonstrated exceptional medical knowledge while working in a non-medical capacity. Alina waited, sensing the administration's dilemma. Her achievement couldn't be ignored, yet acknowledging it fully would disrupt established hierarchies. The board has authorized a commendation and bonus, Lawrence continued. And we'd like to discuss potential opportunities that might better utilize your scientific background. The offer was carefully calibrated. Recognition without fundamental disruption. Opportunity without admission of systematic oversight. I appreciate that, Alina replied evenly. I've always valued learning, even when circumstances prevented formal education. Dr. Lawrence nodded, relieved by Alina's measured response. Mr. Thornton has also expressed interest in speaking with you once he's sufficiently recovered. 1 month later, Alina received a message that seemed surreal. Marcus Thornton requested her presence in his office downtown. She arranged time off, dressed in her best non-uniform clothes, and entered the gleaming tower that housed Thornton Technologies. Unlike the hospital, where she'd navigated corridors invisibly, here she was escorted with deference. The executive floor revealed a recovered Thornton, thinner and slightly paler, but very much alive. Miss Reyes, he greeted her, rising from behind his desk. Please sit. I've wanted to thank you properly since I regained full consciousness. Alina sat, acutely aware of the role reversal. The man whose room she had cleaned now offered her a chair in his personal domain. I'm glad you're recovering well, she responded simply. Recovering understates it. I'm alive because you saw what others missed. Thornton studied her. Dr. Webb explained your background. Chemistry prodigy, scholarship student, education interrupted by family tragedy. Alina nodded, surprised at how thoroughly her story had been investigated. Intelligence shouldn't be wasted, Thornton continued. I've established a foundation to support brilliant minds facing financial barriers. You're the inspiration and first recipient. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside, documentation for a full scholarship to complete her chemistry degree, living stipend included, along with guaranteed placement in Riverside's toxicology department upon graduation. This isn't charity, Thornton clarified, nodding her expression. It's investment in exceptional talent. The hospital has already approved your position, part-time during studies, full-time after graduation. They're rather eager to have your expertise officially. Alina's fingers traced the document edges. Dreams she'd packed away years ago suddenly tangible again. My children, she began. The stipend covers childcare, Thornton assured her. All practical obstacles have been addressed. The only question is, are you ready to reclaim your interrupted path? That evening, Alina sat with her children, explaining how their lives would change. Their eyes widened with pride as she recounted the full story she'd previously minimized. You saved a billionaire, Mom, Miguel asked incredulously. I used knowledge I never stopped building, she corrected gently. And now we have a new chapter ahead. 2 weeks later, Alina entered Riverside University, not through service entrances but the main doors. Student ID in hand for morning classes, hospital badge for her afternoon toxicology internship. Dr. Webb nodded stiffly when they passed in hallways, professional courtesy, replacing dismissal. Dr. Chen had become a friend and advocate, helping navigate her transition from support staff to specialist in training. The department already has cases they want your perspective on, he mentioned during lunch. Your observational skills are unlike anything they've seen. In quiet moments, Alina sometimes remembered cleaning those same floors, invisible to the people who now sought her insights. The memory brought neither bitterness nor resentment, only appreciation for the journey's perfect, impossible arc. On her first day assisting with a difficult toxicology case, Alina stood in the laboratory surrounded by equipment she once only cleaned, now hers to command. The white coat felt foreign yet familiar, the weight of a dream deferred, not denied. She picked up the patient file and began her analysis, bringing both scientific training and the unique perspective of someone who had learned to see what others overlooked. Someone who understood that wisdom could be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes the most valuable insights came from those society had trained itself not to see. The transition wasn't seamless. Some medical staff still carried vestiges of old hierarchies in their interactions. Occasionally, someone would express surprise at finding her in the toxicology lab rather than cleaning it. Alina met these moments with quiet dignity, letting her work speak for itself. Her first semester back in formal education brought both challenges and joys. Academic language returned slowly. Theoretical frameworks needed rebuilding, yet her practical experience provided insights textbooks couldn't teach. You approach problems differently, her advanced chemical analysis professor observed. You see applications before theories. I learned in reverse order, Alina explained. Practice before principle. The Thornton Foundation expanded beyond Alina's initial scholarship, identifying other talented individuals whose education had been interrupted by circumstance. When interviewed about his philanthropy, Thornton credited Alina's story as the catalyst. Intelligence exists everywhere, not just in credentialed spaces, he told reporters. Miss Reyes saved my life because she maintained knowledge without recognition. How many others like her exist? Their talents invisible to systems that only value official credentials. 6 months after the diagnosis that changed everything, Alina was invited to present at a hospital conference on diagnostic approaches. She stood at the podium addressing doctors who had once walked past her without seeing. Observation doesn't require credentials, she began. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from unexpected sources, from people trained to be invisible who see what others overlook precisely because they move through spaces differently. Dr. Webb sat in the audience, his expression a complex mixture of respect and lingering discomfort at the hierarchical disruption her story represented. Yet he nodded at her key points, professional enough to acknowledge truth. After the presentation, a young hospital worker, a transporter who moved patients between departments, approached Alina hesitantly. I've been taking night classes in nursing, she confided, but nobody here knows. They just see the uniform. Alina recognized her younger self in the woman's expression, the hunger for knowledge, the frustration of invisibility, the determination despite barriers. Keep learning, Alina advised. Knowledge belongs to those who pursue it, regardless of title. And remember, being underestimated has its advantages. You see things others miss. The woman nodded, standing straighter. One small conversation, one shared story, perhaps the beginning of another barrier broken. At home that evening, Alina helped Sophia with her science homework. The kitchen table that once held cleaning schedules and budget calculations now featured textbooks, laboratory reports, and college applications. Sophia's grades had improved dramatically, inspired by her mother's example. Mom, Sophia asked, do you ever wish things had happened differently, that you hadn't had to drop out of school? Alina considered the question carefully. My path wasn't what I planned, but it taught me things I couldn't have learned any other way. How to observe, how to persist, how to find worth in myself when others didn't see it. She smiled at her daughter. The journey matters as much as the destination. 1 year after saving Marcus Thornton's life, Alina attended a ceremony establishing the Reyes Scholarship for Scientific Excellence, a permanent endowment specifically for individuals returning to scientific education after career interruptions. The first 5 recipients included a former delivery driver, a retail worker, and a landscaper, all with demonstrated scientific aptitude and interrupted educational journeys. Miss Reyes exemplifies what we often forget in our credential-focused society, Thornton said during the ceremony. That brilliance exists everywhere, in all walks of life, often unseen because we're trained to look only in expected places. As Alina stood to acknowledge the audience, she saw Dr. Webb among the attendees. Their eyes met briefly, mutual recognition of how completely the world had changed between them. He nodded respectfully, the gesture acknowledging both her triumph and his own growth. Later, touring the research facility funded by the foundation, Alina paused before a plaque in the entrance hall. It bore a simple quote she had offered during the planning stages. "Intelligence recognizes no boundaries. Knowledge honors no hierarchies. Truth reveals itself to those who seek it, regardless of position." The foundation had transformed her individual victory into systemic change, creating pathways for others whose talents remained hidden behind uniforms, job titles, and social expectations. In the toxicology laboratory, where she now worked part-time while completing her degree, Alina had established a reputation for solving cases others couldn't crack. Her colleagues attributed this to exceptional chemical knowledge, but Alina understood the deeper truth. Her years of invisibility had trained her to see patterns others missed, to question assumptions others accepted, to notice details others overlooked. What had once been her burden had become her strength. 2 years after the diagnosis that changed everything, Alina stood in her graduation gown, her children beaming from the audience. At 38, she was older than typical graduates, her path unconventional, her journey marked by detours others hadn't faced. Yet as she received her diploma, completing the circle begun years earlier, Alina felt no regret for the winding path. Each experience, even the years of invisibility, of dismissal, of cleaning floors while carrying unused knowledge, had shaped her unique perspective. As she joined her children after the ceremony, Sophia hugged her fiercely. "I'm so proud of you, Mom. Remember this," Alina told her children. "Your worth isn't determined by how others see you. It exists independently, waiting for the right moment to shine." That evening, at a small celebration dinner, Dr. Chen raised a toast. To Alina Reyes, who taught an entire hospital that wisdom can be found in unexpected places. Alina smiled, thinking of her journey from invisible to essential, from dismissed to respected. The transformation felt complete, yet she retained the valuable perspective gained from years moving through the world unseen. In her new office at Cedar Memorial, once merely a building she cleaned, now her professional home, Alina kept a small framed photo of herself in her former uniform, not as a reminder of past dismissal, but as acknowledgement of the unique strength gained through that experience. Her phone rang, a consulting request from another hospital facing a mysterious poisoning case. Alina picked up, ready to apply both her formal training and her hard-won perspective. Her voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who had proven her worth beyond all doubt. "This is Dr. Reyes," she answered. "How can I help you?" The title felt right, earned through unconventional pathways, but no less valid for the journey taken. And as she listened to the case details, Alina recognized patterns and possibilities others might miss, her mind connecting dots that remained invisible to those who had never learned to see from the shadows.